What's the timing on the EIDL grant? We've talked to 5 folks from the SBA to get some more information. What's the latest on the Georgia Senate runoff? Who's expected to win? And what does that mean for your $2,000 stimulus checks? And finally, if you received an EIDL loan from the first go-around, how can you actually check your balance? We're going to get into all of that in this quick video. Hey everyone, this is Ryder from Skip. Hope you're doing well. It's Tuesday, January 5th. The Georgia Senate runoff is today. That's huge news. We've been waiting for this for months, and the outcome of today's election will determine many things, but most importantly, it will determine, number one, if we'll get the $2,000 stimulus checks, and number two, if we will get more stimulus package funding, what Biden can do in his administration. Stay tuned until the end because there's a lot to cover. I'm going to get into all that and what the SBA representatives said. We've called a handful of SBA representatives. It took some prodding, but we got some information. Now, let me give you a quick update on the trackers on the free Skip app. I'm going to leave the link right above and in the description. And to the tens of thousands of you who've tried these out, thank you. We pushed another version today, so have you had any issues due to the volume on the app? We've fixed that. We've done our best to fix that. If you still have issues, as always, leave a comment. I will answer all of them. EIDL Grant Tracker, the app, of course, still says no one's received anything. We're still waiting on rules. Currently, no action is needed, but stay tuned. And you can also see if your address qualifies based on the low income threshold. You can also check more info. We update this every day to see what we define as low income. Again, the caveat here is that this is subject to change based on the final SBA rules. So this is really just for illustration purposes, so you can under the low income provision or not. In terms of stimulus news, we've been between 4.5 and 5% the whole time. Sometimes it goes up to 4.9, 5, sometimes it's down to 4.7. This is the general threshold. This updates in real time as well, but you can keep an eye on this. We expect this to change in the next couple days because more people have reported receiving their stimulus checks. So keep an eye on that. Finally, in vaccine news, we just updated this. It'll say 4.8 million in a few minutes. The CDC said that another 200,000 people have gotten vaccinated in the last 24 hours. So there's progress being made. It's slower than expected. That's all on the Skip app, and feel free to check out the other trackers as well. Here's why today's Georgia Senate race is so important, and here's who's in the lead. According to 538, both Democrats were leading. Ossoff and Warnock were in the lead. Early voting favored Democrats, but early voting tends to always favor Democrats. Bottom line, it's a very close race. Here are the polls. You can see historically how close both races have been. Ossoff in the poll yesterday was up almost 2 percentage points, Warnock the same. So the polls close later tonight. We may know tonight, we may not. Obviously, we're going to keep you updated. We might do a video later too, depending on how it goes and depending if we get results tonight. This is a big deal for 2 reasons. One, the fate of the $2,000 stimulus checks could hinge on this. As we know, the $2,000 amendment was approved by Democrats, led by Pelosi. Then it went to the Senate, where McConnell blocked the vote. He tried to put other stuff in an amendment, basically didn't want the $2,000 stimulus checks. Most Republicans don't, although a handful do. Now, if both Democrats win today, Democrats will take control of the Senate, and they will be able to vote and pass the $2,000 amendment. And this is the Democrats' message, and this is Biden's message as well. The Biden tells Georgia voters that they can expect $2,000 stimulus checks if both Democrats win and they take control of the Senate. So that's, of course, the last-minute bid to push for the Democratic candidates. That's expected. Of course, everyone wants to take credit. It's interesting to see the stock market has mixed feelings about this. Of course, if Democrats win, they will pass a lot more stimulus. That's what most people expect. And inflation will go up. Again, it's just printing more money, and that, of course, has an effect. You can't just print more money without consequences. But that's Biden's push. He says, yes, if both Democrats win today, boom, you expect $2,000 stimulus checks. So if you've been waiting for your stimulus check or if you've received yours, this number would update. So basically, we would update from the 600 threshold that currently is under law to the new 2,000 limit, or whatever they agree on. But most people assume if they agree on 2,000, then it will just be the difference between 2,000 and 600. So you may get an additional $1,400 per individual. So we're keeping an eye on that. I'd love to hear how you feel about today's Georgia Senate runoff. I want to get into one of the biggest questions we've been getting recently that I realize hasn't been covered anywhere. Basically, the question is, how do you actually look up your loan status? So almost 4 million people got EIDL loans in the first go-around. So basically, many of you got EIDL grants. And then as part of that, you were offered more money, say up to $150,000 as part of the EIDL loan program. Some of you may have only gotten $10,000, $20,000 extra as a loan. Some of you up to the $150K, and that was the maximum. $150K was the new maximum. Two important things here. One, those loans have interest, and interest is accruing. Even though you don't have to make a payment for a full year, there is interest accruing. And surprisingly, we've heard that SBA has not sent out any information on how to check this. In our phone calls with the SBA, we learned this, and we realized most people aren't thinking about this yet. But look, this is almost $200 billion in loans, and people haven't been told, hey, just to keep in mind, you're gonna have to start paying these back in 3-4 months. So I'm going to do a longer video on this. I just want to show you now there's a website I will link to on the app as well, Capital Access Financial System. It's a convoluted web address, so I'll put it right under the EIDL grants. More info on the app. It looks like this. So it's a bit complicated. That's why I'm going to do a longer video on it, but you can create a user ID and password and log in. Now, the tricky part is this is one of those old school forms. The form hasn't been updated since 2015. It has all of the random questions, like what was your shoe color in high school? And you have to choose 3 of those questions, and you may only know answers to 1 of the questions. So that's a complicated thing. And it also has required fields that aren't obvious. So if you miss it, you have to refill a bunch of the form. It's very annoying. So I will cover that in an upcoming video. Here's how the site will look when you log in. Very minimalist. It's got the minimalist thing going on. And then you'll be able to see your specific loan information. So you'll be able to see the accrued interest to date, outstanding interest, total interest, and then basically your total balance and when your first payment is due and how to make your first payment. Obviously, that's important. Many of you won't have to pay until April, May, June, but just want to keep that in mind because no one's really talked about this. Besides the EIDL grants, many of you took advantage of these loans. It's still low interest, 3.75% for most businesses, 2.75% if you are a nonprofit. So subscribe and you'll get an alert when we cover this form in detail and how to get in here and view all this information. So finally, we made a handful of calls to the SBA. It's part of what we do regularly. 3 of the folks we talked to said pretty much the same thing. We don't know. We are low level. We leave it to the higher ups. We're just frontline support. And no one knows except for the higher ups when a new form will go live or when new rules will be released. However, we convinced some people to give us some hints, and we got to talk to a level 2 support person as well. They basically hinted, without saying definitively, that we could expect something by the end of this week. Okay, so by the end of this week, we may see new EIDL grant rules and or a new form. Basically what to do, whether you were rejected the first time around, whether you got partial funding, whether you got full funding, whether you are in a low-income area or not. That's a new timeline we could expect. We should look for those by the end of the week. Of course, that aligns with what we predicted because the SBA does have 15 days to make the rules from when the bill was signed into law. So basically next Monday will be the 15-day mark. So they might try to get something out Friday rather than Monday morning. Although I would be surprised because if they release something Friday, they are inviting stress and anxiety because there will be millions of people across the country that have questions and they will want answers on Saturday and Sunday where the SBA will have a much lighter support staff on, I can only assume. So maybe they will want to wait until beginning of next week to release something because then they can have all hands on deck answering questions. Whatever the case is, we will be ready to keep you updated. As always, we'll be ready to keep you updated on what happens here with the Senate runoff, what that means for the fate of $2,000 stimulus checks, and we're updating everything on the app multiple times per day. As always, thank you so much for supporting us, for subscribing, and sharing with a friend. It means so much to us. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.